Very well, thank you.
Hope everything is good.
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Hi, Shashikala.
Hi,
How are you?
good. I'm good. Thank you.
Hello, Nancy.
Good
Okay,
morning.
so we're almost a minute away. So it's 6 p.m., everyone. Let's start off with the webinar. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Coach to Transformation CCEU webinar. I'm your host, Chaitanya. Today, we are joined by Trish Berry, a professional certified coach and a neuroscience based executive and a career coach with over 25 years of leadership experience, including nearly 2 decades at Target. Through her work at Harmonize Coaching, Trish has supported over 1,000 leaders and professionals in creating meaningful, sustainable change by combining brain science with practical coaching approach. A key focus of her work is coaching neurodivergent professionals, helping them better understand how they think, manage their energy, and work in ways that they align with their strengths. In today's session, coaching neurodivergent clients, masking motivation and energy management, she'll be sharing how coaches can better understand cognitive load, recognize masking patterns, and support clients in more sustainable and effective way. We're really glad to have with you us today, Trish. Over to you.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be with y'all. It's 6:30 in the morning here, so it's quite early. Um, Let me share my screen, and I'm going to ask you to post in the chat when you have any questions, or if I ask a question and ask you to post in the chat. So I'm Trish Perry. I'm a PCC executive and career coach. And today we're going to be talking about coaching neurodivergent clients. And there are three main challenges that most neurodivergent clients face, and that's masking, motivation, and energy management. I am a coach, an author, speaker, a wife, mom, and a nana, which means I'm going to have two grandkids, one in July and one in August. So, coaching neurodivergent clients was not how I started out, especially with that specialty. Was I familiar with neurodivergence? Yes, I was, because all of my family is neurodivergent except for me at the time. But that was my family, not my career. As you heard, I spent 20 years as a corporate leader at Target. And after a layoff during the Great Recession, I stepped into another role, but I didn't love it. But that's who I was. I was a corporate leader. And so my life shifted then. And I was diagnosed with breast cancer. After a double mastectomy and 6 weeks off, I returned to work, only I wasn't the same. The cancer medication that I was taking caused what's called acquired neurodivergence. Organization had been my strength, it was my hallmark. And suddenly I couldn't organize my way out of a paper bag. I lost words mid sentence, I forgot commitments. I really felt my confidence slipping away, or I thought, in real time. And my boss kept asking, "What's wrong with you? When will you get back to normal?" And I could not answer that question. So, one solution we tried was to send me to occupational therapy. But here's what they said to me: "We don't really know how to help you. You could teach this stuff." I knew how to be organized, I just couldn't do it. So their advice was, put things back in the same place you found them. Well, that's great if you remember where you left them from day to day, and I didn't. So I built my own systems. I bought a label maker, went to work with labeling every drawer and cabinet with all of its contents so that at a glance I could tell what I was looking for. I kept really detailed lists with start and due dates. I broke projects down into really small tasks that I could do in short stints, periods of time. And I used timers and set alarms. I stopped fighting my brain and started working with it and designing for it. And it worked. And as I said, I hated my job and I thought, this is not going to work for me long term. So I quit corporate and I never went back. Instead, I became a coach for executives who were going through adversities like I did. In the past 10 years, I've coached over 1,000 leaders experiencing neurodivergence, and many of those leaders are neurodivergent. And the systems I built to survive my own acquired neurodivergence became some of the core tools I now use with clients. So here's what I know today. Neurodivergence isn't a flaw to fix. It's not a challenge to power through, and it's not a lack of self-discipline. It's a difference that we need to understand, work with, and design for. Today, helping neurodivergent professionals work with their brains instead of against them isn't just a specialty for me, it's personal. So I'm here to share, as I said, those 3 main challenges that most neurodivergent clients face. But before we get started with that, I'm gonna invite you first to be open, honest, and curious. And now we're going to do some breath work. And the reason we're going to do breath work is because when people come into your meetings, let's say we have 10 people. Of those 10 people, 1 to 2 people are going to be here, focused, and ready. 3 to 4 people are going to be in the past or the future. So what just happened or what's going to happen after this meeting. And then 3 to 4 of them are going to be multitasking. So it takes 8.7 minutes for a person who joins a meeting to get present if they're not going to multitask during the whole thing. So let's just take a minute and get present. So close your eyes. We're going to take 3 deep breaths. Inhale presence and exhale presence. Inhale openness and exhale openness. Inhale curiosity and exhale curiosity. Thank you for doing that with me. Now I want to talk to you about the hidden numbers. 1 in 5 working professionals today are neurodivergent, or that's what the numbers say because that's how many have been diagnosed. Please type in the chat how many of you type a Y if you think yes, it's 20%, and type in an N if you think that it's more than that. And actually, instead of typing in an N, type in the number that you think are neurodivergent. I love it. I'm seeing 40, I'm seeing 40%, I'm seeing 50%, I'm seeing 7 in 10. So we're on the same page with this. Did you know that 45% of the C-suite self-identify as neurodivergent? And 53% of Gen Zers self-identify as neurodivergence. Just to give you a little bit of background on this, people did not, especially in the United States, people did not want their kids to be labeled as ADHD, autistic, etc. Because if you told someone at school, they could tell whomever they wanted. And there's a law called HIPAA that went into existence in 1996, but really was not something that was followed until 2003, 2004. So most people in their 30s, 40s, and above have never been diagnosed. And today, 4 times as many adults are getting diagnosed as children are. So that's 4 adults to every 1 child. And it's because their children are getting diagnosed and they're realizing they're seeing themselves in their kids and they're getting diagnosed. So the number is really closer to 40 or 50%. And remember that, because when I go through the definitions, I want you to think about this. So let's go into the definitions. So what is a neurotypical person? I use the Cleveland Clinic definition because I feel like it's the most friendly to both neurotypical and neurodivergent people. It's a non-medical description that refers to someone with brain functions that are considered standard or typical. So at the end of the day, it's non-medical. When you think about it, neurotypical is really a social construct. It's what we're saying is typical. And if in fact 50% of people are neurodivergent, then there is no neurotypical, right? Because everyone's different. Neurodivergent, again, Cleveland Clinic, is a non-medical term that describes people whose brains develop or work differently than neurotypical brains for some reason. It simply means the person has different strengths and struggles from people whose brains work more, quote unquote, typically. And there are 2 kinds of neurodivergence: innate, meaning you are born with it, and acquired. So traumatic brain injuries, strokes, chronic illnesses, trauma, medications, and mental health conditions can all lead to acquired neurodivergence. And that was my case, in that I was on this drug that changed the way that my brain worked. And then several years later, I had a major concussion. And again, that was more acquired neurodivergence for me. So keep these 2 definitions in mind as we go through the presentation. The ICF competencies, we use them every day in coaching, but there are 3 that are really critical for working with neurodivergent clients. And I want to go through those. Cultivating trust and safety. Creating a psychological safe environment, it's really essential, because many have masked all of their life, which simply means they're trying to act like they don't have their neurodivergence. They're trying to act neurotypical. There's rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which means that they feel rejection whenever anyone says anything that is feedback. And understand where part of this comes from. By the age of 10, neurodivergent children will hear 20,000 more negative comments about their behavior than their neurotypical counterparts. I didn't say 2,000, I said 20,000 more negative comments. So you can see where this RSD comes from. And they're dealing with trauma in neurotypical settings, because people are expecting them to not behave that way. The second is embodying a coaching mindset. So being open, curious, and flexible. and letting go of neurotypical norms, understanding that that client has their brains work differently than yours may, and being open to that and not judgmental is really important. And it also helps you to build that trust. So those two build on each other. And then the third is, and this is, I'd forgotten I put this in here. This is a picture. One of these pictures is of me before my neurodivergence, and the other picture is of me without neurodivergence. Who can tell the difference? Can you tell? Put in the chat if you can tell from these pictures which one is the neurodivergent me. So I'm hearing mainly right ones. I got a left one. It's actually the left one when I was neurodivergent. So, you know, we've got about a 50-50 split of people in the chat. And I put this out here just to show you that neurodivergent people don't look any different. And then, there we go. And then the third one is to really evoke awareness. And what we want to do here is help our clients understand and gain insights into how their neurotype affects their life. And for so long, neurodivergent people have viewed their neurodivergence as a deficit. And we want to reframe that perceived deficit into, you know what, it's a difference. How do we work with it? There's nothing wrong with it. But a lot of people have sensory or executive functioning barriers, and we need to teach them how to work with those. So, as I said, what I've learned is if you can help your clients work with their brains versus against it, you're going to be great in coaching neurodivergent clients. How many of you currently have or are planning on having neurodivergent clients? Just put yes if you have or are planning on having your neurodivergent clients. So I've got a lot of yeses. Happy to have. The reason I asked this question is that a lot of coaches say, nope, that's not my specialty. I don't specialize in neurodivergent coaching, so I won't be coaching neurodivergent clients. Well, let's just go with the 40%. If 40% of your clients in general have neurodivergence, the likelihood that you're going to have a neurodivergent client is very high. And they may not even be diagnosed with neurodivergence yet. And so you're going to need to work with them and help them to determine what's working, what's not working. And you don't have to label them as neurodivergent. It's just understanding how to work with those clients. So we're going to go into the 3 most common challenges that neurodivergent people have. And masking is the first. It's a way of representing yourself to be more like others expect you to be. So the bottom line is everyone masks. Think about a meeting that you've gone into where you don't know very many people. Do you feel like you have ever masked? Just come off of mute, and I'd like 1 or 2 people to share where they've masked. It's way more fun if we all participate versus just listening to me talk. Anyone want to share? Yes.
Yeah, hi. When you talk of everyone masks, I think definitely as an individual, as a human being, we all most of the time want to portray a positive, optimistic, maybe successful kind of a persona. We don't want to come across as someone who's weak, who has incompetencies. And I guess our brain is wired to always show a side of ourselves that sounds good.
Yep.
And I think, to be very honest, as a coach, as a coachee, I might have found myself being this at some point and realizing at the end when I sit and analyze that yes, this is not true to my nature and I should not repeat this. So, yeah, I think definitely so. Definitely, Trish.
Thank you, Vandana. And I apologize if Shashikala.
Shashikala.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I agree with everything that Vandana just told. And yes, I think most of us, and me especially, I always say that we are all good actors. When we go out, we are different. I always say, and
Absolutely.
it also depends on the forum where you are, right?
Absolutely.
Friends, you're
Absolutely.
different. In a classroom, you're different. In a corporate, you're different. In meetings, you're different. We know how
Absolutely.
to change with the forum wherever we are, right? And that is
Absolutely.
very important. If the same people come and see us at home, we are different people.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you said, it depends. We do social masking, we do work masking. There are many different places.
Yeah.
With neurodivergent people, a lot of times what they're doing is suppressing their natural traits. So what do I mean by that? Sometimes autistic people will rock. It's a way to stim. Well, if they're in a meeting where no one else is doing that and they're rocking, they feel very self-conscious. That's a way for them to get out that anxiety. And so think about them sitting in a meeting without being able to stim like this. Some people stim this way. Some people click their pens.
Oh, दिक्कत होगी
Imagine
क्या?
if you have to go through your entire day suppressing your traits, what would happen? Having the chameleon effect. I'm one way here, I'm one way there. Shashikala, you were just talking about that. So there is mental exhaustion that is happening with neurodiverse people because the masking takes place sometimes constantly. I have clients who say they can't even stop masking when they go home. They don't want their children to see that because they don't want their children to pick up those traits. So that mental exhaustion, it's overwhelming. So how do we coach masking? For each of these, I'm going to have 3 words, and every one of them starts with identify. So we want to have identify the masking, reduce the masking, and replace the masking. So ask them, when do you mask and when don't you mask? It's really important because if they're not letting their masking down, and unless they're asleep or completely alone, it's costing them a lot of energy. What are their masking behaviors? And then once you find that out, help them to reduce. What are opportunities where they can mask less? As an example, I have quite a few clients who use noise reducing headphones so that they can really focus on their work, and they put a sign outside their door that says, I'm wearing headphones to focus. If you need me, please tap me on the shoulder. That's just one example. Another example is accommodation opportunities. One of the accommodation opportunities is when someone is on a Zoom call. A lot of you have your cameras on, and I appreciate that. And a lot of you have your cameras off. And people will say, please turn your cameras on. You're not going to hear that from me because sometimes people need to not mask. They need to listen to what's happening. And if they're masking, they're not listening as well. So don't always assume because people are not on camera, they are multitasking. And then finally, replace. What are some alternative ways to mask? So I'm going to give you an example. I don't have it here with me right now, but there are pens that have spinners on the top of them that make no noise at all. So those people who sit in meetings and click their pens and make other people crazy, they can buy these gel pens. You can buy them on Amazon that they can simply sit there and spin their fidget. Having fidgets is another way. Being able to work from home, etc. So there are accommodations. In other countries, I don't know what it's like, but in the United States, the workplaces have to accommodate to reasonable accommodations. So that is coaching masking. And please, as you're going through, write down any questions you have. And I promise at the end, I'm going to give time for questions. Motivation is the second challenge. And I'm going to bring you through something that I found incredibly eye-opening when I first found this. And I was like, this is exactly what I need to be able to understand myself and help my neurodivergent clients understand. So neurotypical motivators are these three. How important is something? What is the perceived importance? Meaning, is this important to my boss? Is this important to my coworkers, etc.? And then what are the rewards or the punishments that are going to come with whatever I do? So those are the main motivators of neurotypical people. It doesn't mean that some of these neurodivergent motivators are not important. It means that these are the main ones for neurotypical people. Neurodivergent people are motivated this way. How much interest do I have in this? Because if I have more interest, I'm more likely to focus on it. Where is the novelty? If it's new, neurodivergent people are sometimes more engaged. And sometimes if it's new, they don't want anything to do with the change. Challenge. Is this a new thing and challenging thing for me to do? Urgency. And the interesting thing about urgency is it's not about the urgency for someone else. It's about the urgency for me. How urgent is it that I do this? I'll give you an example. I have a client who part of her job is to pay invoices. And it's a mundane task, and she just could not motivate herself to do it. So she was constantly late in paying. What happened is I had my client and her boss get on the phone and on a Zoom call. And I asked her boss, can you tell us why it's so important to pay these invoices on time? And she said, absolutely. Most of the vendors that we work with are small vendors. If they're not paid on time, they might not be able to pay their rent or their mortgage. Once my client heard that, that created an urgency for her that she hadn't had before. She realized that the work she was doing was really important for those clients. So she hasn't missed a day of paying invoices because she has the urgency. She feels the urgency. She was told, if you don't start paying these invoices, you're going to lose your job. And she still wasn't paying the invoices. That was not her urgency. Does that make sense? Just some head nods. Thank you. Okay. And then passion. And passion and interest could be one and the same. We pull them apart because there's one thing to have an interest in something. There's another thing to have a really deep passion for it. And that passion, if you have someone who's ADHD who has a passion for something, they can hyper focus. And I can pretty much guarantee you that hyper focus will, and if they have a project, that project will be flawless because they are so passionate about it. So hopefully you're seeing where some of these motivations are really strengths for those neurodivergent people. They need that motivation. Motivation is hard for them. So how do you coach motivation? Here you want to identify, add, and support. Identifying is, what are the reasons for procrastination? And here I'm just going to tell you something that I always use in coaching. Don't ask people why. Ask them what, where, when, how, and who. The word why can be very seen as almost punitive, because think about the first time that when you heard a lot of why, when you were little. Why did you do that? Why would you treat that person that way? Why don't you share your toys? So you understand how why can be that. So what makes you procrastinate? Let's pick an example. What's something you've procrastinated on lately? What were the reasons you procrastinated? And really get down to the reasons why. And then help them understand what feels overwhelming. So identify, when I have too many tasks on my plate, I don't know where to start first. Help them identify that. And then what motivates you? When you do get your work done, what's behind it? The second is to add. Add interest, novelty, challenge, urgency, or passion to each task. Help them figure it out. One of the things that I do with clients is I talk to them about, how can we gamify this? So social media and game apps are two of the most addicting substances in our lives today. And why is that? There's something called the like button. There are comments. When you're playing games, there are all kinds of bells and whistles going off, and people get hits of dopamine as they do that. That's why it's so addicting. So if you can help them find their motivation, then they understand, okay, here's what I can do. Gamifying is one way to do that. How do you gamify? I have a client who took this to the nth degree. And what she did is so we lost our screen. I apologize for that. I'll have to share it again. What she did is she took her living room or her dining room table and she made it into a Monopoly board. So if you're familiar with the game Monopoly, there are all kinds of there are spaces with properties, etc. So for every property, she had a starburst, and every one of those places was every one of those places was a task that she had to do. And she had a starburst on each one of those. So she could eat the starburst when she finished. And then for each of the four middle ones, it was something bigger, like a pen or something like that. And then each of the corners were the milestones. And she bought herself a briefcase. She bought herself, she likes to journal. So she bought herself 4 great gifts. And if she didn't do the task, she had to return those. So she took gamifying to the nth degree. You don't have to gamify like that, but that's an example of an over-the-top gamifying. Let me share my screen again. I don't know why this went away, but it did. Okay. And then you want to help them support. So as I said before, breaking things into smaller tasks are a way to take the overwhelm away. And I'm going to share with you a specific tool that I use, which is a 7-minute challenge. So if people can break down their task into smaller steps and then do a 7-minute challenge. All that 7 minutes means is that you set your timer for 7 minutes, you work on that task, and when the timer goes off, you listen to your brain. Your brain is either saying, no, I don't want to do this, or, you know what, I'm into this already, let me just go ahead and finish it. And you follow what your brain says. And then if your brain says, no, I don't want to do this, you stop doing it. Later on, your client sets another 7 minutes, does another 7 minutes, but they have almost 15 minutes in by that time. So a lot will just then continue. But so breaking tasks into smaller steps and then giving them a tool like a challenge, a 7-minute challenge is something you can do. Creating clear deadlines, and then creating visible priorities and deadlines. I'm going to share this with you. This is called a time timer. This was created by a gentleman who has ADHD. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but a lot of people with ADHD have what's called time blindness. So they can't tell what 5 minutes is. I'm sorry, this keeps going in and out. I'm gonna see if I can unblur my screen. There we go. Okay. So if I set this for 15 minutes, you can see it's set for 15 minutes. But now I can see the color going down versus counting it in minutes. And this, for every one of my ADHD clients, I give them this. I use this and it works really well for me. So again, it's called a time timer and it's available on Amazon. So that's the clear like deadline. If you have 30 minutes to get something done, set your timer for 30 minutes. And then again, setting time boundaries, and that's where we use that time timer and using short sprints. Okay. The third piece we're going to talk about, and this is the third of the 3 M's, and that is energy management considerations. So a lot of neurodivergent people go into what's called a boom or bust cycle. When they're motivated, when they have that energy, they're all in. And they can go, and this is autistic people, OCD people, et cetera. I mean, there are many, many different types of neurodivergence, but they go all in. And they can work, like do a 6-hour stint. And when they're done with it, they have no energy left and they're done for the day. So these huge peaks and valleys happen quite often. And you need to understand that boom and bust cycle for them and identify it with them. As I said, some people have time blindness, some people have time optimism, some people have both. Time blindness is, I really don't perceive time. You say I have 15 minutes or you say I have 5 minutes, it's kind of all the same. Time optimism means that, and my entire family has time optimism. That is that, how long is it going to take you? Oh, I'll get it done in 30 minutes. 3 hours later, they're still working on it. So they're optimistic that they can get things done in a shorter time frame than they actually can. What neurotypical people call simple tasks take way more energy. One thing that happens is task switching. So I have to go from working on this to working on this, right? The time it takes it can take for a neurodivergent person to switch tasks is more than it takes a neurotypical person. When you get interrupted, when you're working on something and someone comes in and says, I have a quick question for you. Can you answer this for me? What most people don't understand is that interruption takes people an average of 22 minutes to get back to the focus level that they had before the interruption. 22 minutes on average. So neurotypical people, it doesn't take as long. For a neurodivergent person, it takes longer, and sometimes they just don't ever get back to the task because they can't remember where they left off, and they're frustrated and they just leave the task. So that's an example of where simple tasks take more energy. I have clients that it takes them an hour to motivate themselves to get up and do their laundry. What's a simple task to some people is very arduous to some neurodivergent people. And the reason I'm saying some instead of all is because I have never, in my 10 years of coaching, had let's say they're ADHD. I've never had two ADHD people who are the same. Some things will be the same, some things will be different. So you can never just generalize because it's different. And then energy is abstract. And abstract things for neurodivergent people are tougher. So there are 3 energy management methods that you can use. And the first is energy accounting. So I talk about what is your body budget. And when I talk to my clients about this, I talk about it like their bank account. So you start with $100 in your bank account. Every task that you do during the day is high, medium, or low. So, for example, something might be high and you might be like, okay, that's worth $25. Something that's low could be worth $1. You figure that out with your client. What happens with a lot of these clients is they are actually running on a deficit most days. That's why after they get home from work, they have no energy for personal care, for their family, etc. So really understanding that. So I do it in bank accounts. Other people do it in traffic lights. So what tasks are red, what are yellow, and what are green? Green, I could do it all day. Yellow, it's going to take energy. Red, I'm going to do one thing and then I'm going to be spent for the rest of the day. So you can use traffic lights. And then any of you who have been through therapy may have heard about the spoon theories. The spoon theory is using objects. So I start the day with 10 spoons. Each task costs me a spoon. Once I do these tasks, I have no spoons left, which means your energy is gone. So those are 3 different energy management methods. So how do we coach to energy management? Again, identify, adjust, and then balance. Identifying is, what are your withdrawals? How much does it cost you to do each of these tasks during the day? This one we don't spend time on, and that's helping people identify their deposits. So deposits are things that give them energy back. It could be things like going for a walk, going out into the fresh air. It could be doing just 3 deep breaths. It could be just going and talking to someone who understands them. So what are their deposits? What are their withdrawals? Understanding their high cost activities and really making sure that in a week they have maybe 1 high cost activity a day, but don't put all your high cost activities in one day. And then what are your parent patterns of overdraft? So a lot of people will just be in overdraft and it takes them longer to do things. That takes more energy. So many neurodivergent professionals operate in overdraft without even realizing it. And then how do you adjust? What are some unnecessary withdrawals that you have? Are there any? adding intentional deposits during the day. I have a client who is autistic, and stimming for her is an intentional deposit. So sometimes she will go into a conference room, shut the door, and she will do her stimming because she doesn't want to do her stimming out in the open. So rather than mask, she finds ways that she can get those intentional deposits without being in the open. And then plan recovery after large withdrawals. So when you have those really high energy tasks, then talk to your clients about how are you going to recover after that? Because if you think you're going to go into a strategic meeting after you've done a high energy task, you're not going to be as effective in that meeting. And then help them balance it. And that's staying within their daily capacity. They have to identify it first. And in identifying, you then have to ask them to take whichever method you use with them. If you use the money, or if you use objects like spoons, or if you use the traffic light, you're going to need to help them understand that on a day-by-day basis so that you can help them adjust and balance. And then protect their energy outside of work. The biggest complaint that I hear from my neurodivergent clients is, I put all my energy in at work, and then I have no energy when I get home. So help them protect that energy outside of work by managing their energy at work so that they can have some when they get home. So I want to share this from a VP client that I worked with, specifically on the fact that he didn't realize he was, he knew he was autistic, didn't realize he had ADHD. He was found out during this, but what he said is, Trish helped me see that my autism and ADHD don't make me less. I have a lot of talents that others don't. I figured out how to navigate a neurotypical world being myself. Thank you. My life is so much better personally and professionally. So that's why I'm here today, so that when you have clients like this, you get these kinds of, you make this kind of an impact on them. You help to transform their life into thinking, this neurodivergence makes me less than. This is a deficit, into seeing it for what it is. It's a difference. And there are ways to work with it. And you can bring your clients through this and change their trajectory. So with that, I would like to invite you to set up a one-to-one with me and just let's have a conversation. I am putting this, if you're interested in talking more about neurodivergent clients and ways you can help them, I put my link in the chat as well. So I'd love to talk with you about this. So with that, this next slide is where we're going to end, and that's questions. So sometimes people ask me, what does neurodivergence mean? And here are some of the dyspraxia, OCD, ADHD, autism, acquired neurodivergence, dysgraphia. These are just some. There are many, many more. But I'm going to open it up and ask, what questions do you have? I am not going to call on people by name. I'm going to call on people by their I have someone whose hands up, and Rajamani,
Hi,
I
can I
believe.
go ahead with
last.
my question?
Actually, yes, go ahead.
Or should I wait?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so well, first and foremost, love the conversation, love what you share. This is something that I work day in, day out with a lot of parents and their young adults, those who are at work. My question is, how do you, do you support young adults to adjust better in their workspace, especially those who are with neurodivergent conditions? So, do you coach them to adjust, and also do you encourage to ask for accommodations at workplace?
Okay. So I have coached younger adults. My specialty is in coaching executives and higher level managers. I have coached young adults. I actually have 2 twins that I'm coaching right now in their 20s. And absolutely, Shivali, am I pronouncing that correctly? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I do have them ask for accommodations at work. Some people are very afraid to bring their neurodivergence up in their workplace. What I tell them is, if you're not honest and bring it up, it is likely going to come out sideways, and you could be let go. You know what? I will be very honest with y'all. I think about when I was an executive before I knew as much about neurodivergence as I know today. And I know for a fact that I let a couple of my employees go because they weren't doing the job the way they should. It was that they needed to work differently. I had so many people complaining about them, and rather than working with them, I let them go. And I wish I could go back, turn back time and change that. But I share that with you because you can help those neurodivergent clients not get to that point. People don't. When first line managers are promoted, no one teaches them how do you deal with neurodivergent employees. Think about it. If 40% of employees are neurodivergent, which we think that's more the number, you're going to have a neurodivergent person or two, and you better figure out how to work with them. But we don't. Our society just says, no, this is the typical way to work. This is the way you need to do it. So you have this great opportunity to help your clients. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think the important part equally is to sensitize the employers, to sensitize the team that they're working with, which is equally important. I can only ask when I feel safe to ask. Therefore, It is a two-way channel, right?
Right.
But thank you so much for your response and taking my question.
Absolutely. And Shivali, I'll add one more piece to that. Something that I'm trying to advocate for is going into workplaces to talk about neurodivergence, to have these conversations so that people understand, because you can't blame people for not understanding when they don't know anything about it. And so I would love to see workplaces have some training on this.
Yeah.
So
thank you
Dr.
so
Rani,
much.
you're welcome. Dr. Rani, you raised your hand.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Trish. That was very interesting. So this is someone pretty little close to me, but has ADHD, and the energy levels are very high. At the same time, there is also a person takes medications, but when the medications are not available, the person tends to go really restless and a lot, the restlessness, and there's a lot of uneasiness and discomfort, and little bit of how does one manage this kind of a personality through conversations and to say it's okay and to kind of cool down because the dependency on the medicines become high. So
Absolutely.
any tips there?
So I'm not a therapist, so I won't give any type of therapeutic information. What I can tell you is that if that person feels safe with you, if you create an environment where they can be themselves and where you can say, it's okay, that goes a long way. And then helping them to understand where is that anxiety coming from? Talk to me about that. And giving them a place to really be honest, because more than likely they've been masking a lot of their life. And so some of my clients have incredible anxiety going into social situations because they have been judged all their life. And they're afraid that they're going to be judged, and that stays in their mind. That's why it is so important that the ICF competency of trust becomes one of the pieces that you make sure that is your foundation. That by the age of 10, this person, think about it, heard 20,000 more negative comments than others did. And when you think about that, it's very sad, and you start to see why that anxiety can be there. Did I answer your question? I know I didn't give you very specific. You're on mute.
This has definitely been helpful, triggering a few thoughts to approach. Thank you so much. I also appreciate the fact that when you said that you're not a therapist, I appreciate that fact. But yes, a conversation and acceptance of the person for the person, what he or she is, becomes very important. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the line I draw between coaching and therapy, just so you know, is that as a coach, I feel like we meet people where they are. We understand what's going on, and then we work with them on ways that they can be better at things. The processing of it all is all about the therapist. I don't process with people at all. I work with them to create skills and behaviors to move forward. So
got it. Thank you, Trish. Thank you.
Okay. Nadi, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, absolutely. And hi, Trish. I hope I'm getting you right.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So first of all, of course, thanks a ton for such an insightful session. I loved it. My question is, okay, before I share my question, I just want to give you a bit of a backdrop. I'm a leadership coach, and I tend to work with a lot of senior executives in corporates, all right? And so I'm just thinking, in my almost 10 years of work as a leadership coach, nobody came to me saying that they are neurodivergent, or even that term is something which I'm learning now. So I'm just thinking that perhaps some of my clients are, some of those people are, but how do I recognize that? I mean, is there something you can share around that? Yeah.
It's very hard to generalize how you can recognize it. I mean, there are, like, as an example, autism. A lot of times you can tell someone is autistic when they have very little to no eye contact. So I keep looking at the person on the screen, which looks like I'm not looking at y'all, but I am. So right now I'm looking into the camera, and it looks like I'm looking at you. When I'm looking away and I'm talking to you like this, it doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention to you. It just means that my brain works differently. I have a nephew who is autistic, and my niece he's a great nephew, but my niece worked really hard throughout his childhood to have him look people in the face. That looking people in the face in the eyes takes an immense amount of energy. So one of the things that we recommended is that he look at people's noses, because then people think that you're looking at their eyes, but you aren't looking that directly in their eyes. But it's still, that takes a tremendous amount of effort. And that takes away from other energy management that they have. So you might find people who are like, they're always coming into the meeting a couple minutes late. It's because they're time blind. They had 5 minutes. They thought, oh, I'll just get this task done. Well, the task took 10 minutes, not 5 minutes. Those kinds of things. Sometimes, if someone Tourette syndrome is a neurodivergence, that is fairly easy to see because it's these outbursts at times when it makes no sense. But it's really hard for me to tell you how you can tell. Sapna, I put my information in the chat. You can set up a time with me. I can, we can email back and forth if you have questions. Like, I have this client who's doing this, this, and this. What do you think? I'd be happy to have those conversations with you. And then,
sorry, you said Sapna. So was that for me?
Yes, that is for you.
All right. Okay. I get that. No, thank you so much for sharing this bit of insight. Perhaps I'll also do a little bit of a search of my own because like you talked of anxiety and certain other things. So I don't know whether you're aware of a leadership report called Hogan Assessment, where there is a Big Five trait, which is or a Big Five report where there is a trait of neuroticism, where it's all about reactive scale of reactive vis-a-vis resilient. So, however, what I'm picking up through the conversation that I've heard is that perhaps NDs are more, I don't know if that is on the reactive side, perhaps quick to, yeah. Is that right?
Some are not. Again, the way that I look at neurodivergence is in a sphere, and we all are somewhere here in the sphere. It's not, the people have talked about spectrums. One of the things, please don't use these terms is I'm gonna forget. This is my neurodivergent brain, where this was from the medication. Sometimes I have vocabulary recall issues. So that's what's going on. So on a spectrum, they're high. Somebody fill in that word for me. They're high or they're low, meaning they can still work or they can't work. I can't remember the word. Anyway, so and using that spectrum like that is not a great thing to do. It's very triggering for neurodivergent people. So
right. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the word right now. So sorry about that. All
right.
right. So
thanks so much. Yeah, like sure.
Said,
you did. You did. I think. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No,
right.
no, thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. No, you did simply because I think, like you rightly said, there is no sort of a general sort of a way to determine that. And I think I should just chuck my question out of the window and just take people as where they are and work with them instead of sort of trying to scratch my head and saying, okay, ND or not ND and so on and so forth. And that's like putting them in a box, and that's not something which I ought to be doing. So no, thanks for bringing me back to that. And this works. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Someone just put in the chat Asperger's, and I'm not sure why that went in there, but Asperger's is what they use. It was a term they used for a type of autism. Asperger's is not used anymore because Dr. Asperger did a lot of testing on neurodivergent people in in World War II and was a Nazi. So Asperger's is a term that is no longer used. So they're on the autism spectrum. They don't use Asperger's anymore. So just as an FYI for y'all, because I don't want you to not know that. So Sapna, again, did I pronounce that correct?
Yeah, Sapna, that's okay. Thank you. And lovely session. And we need a lot more of this because we have highly skilled people coming in every generation. I would call it that. And the labels are going to fade away soon. Hopefully, we'll be more accepting of it.
Let's hope it does, because like I said, if 53% of Gen Zers consider themselves neurodivergent. So if that number is true, there is no more social construct to say they're neurotypical and neurodivergent. If you're at a 50-50, it's like, which is normal?
Yeah.
So.
I just wanted to know if there are any books or references that, could help in reading up more on this.
Yeah, let me pull together a resource list for you, and I'll send it to the company, and they can put it out there.
Thank you, Trish.
Or you can send me an email, however you want to.
All right.
Do that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The session was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that we are out of time, so I'm happy to stay on and answer more questions if people have them, if that is what we want to do, or we can end the session now.
Thank you, Trish.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Trish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trish, for this session. It was really insightful. Thank you for accepting our invite for this.
Absolutely.
And yeah. Also, everyone, we have shared the CCU certificate form in the chat box. So if you could fill the form, you will receive your CCEU certificate over mail. Thank you. Thank you.